Hello, welcome.
Hey.
Hej. Berätta in English. It's okay. Vem är du och vad har du för bakgrund?
Okay, I am Placido Silipegni, but everybody knows me by the name of Dino. I'm a former Italian police. I worked with the United Nations for many years. And now I'm here in Norrköping as a migrant who has just finished SFE. Yeah?
Och vad är dina erfarenheter av migration och integration?
Apart from my personal experience, basically I've worked in this domain with the United Nations for many years. I was in Iraq, I was in Tanzania, in Congo DRC, implementing programs that looked at migration management and integration, very often also reintegration. People coming back from Europe or other countries to their countries of origin. Yeah.
Och vad skulle du vilja lyfta för någonting som känns viktigt kopplat till de här frågorna?
I think that it is important to look at migration in all its complexity. So it's not an easy subject to be managed, and certainly cannot be managed superficially or looking at it only from one perspective. A systemic approach is important to be used. A systemic approach that starts with school, obviously, starts with education, and for example, in the case of migrants being hosted in a new country, with the understanding of the language which goes beyond, if you will, the possibility of communicating a message, but does entail also a psychological element that make possible to understand the culture system, which becomes your new culture, your new system. Yeah.
Vad tror du är de största utmaningarna för människor som flyttar till Sverige idag?
That's a very good question. It depends on the culture of origin. Obviously, there might be cultures that are that have got an easier way to adapt and to integrate in Sweden. If you think, for example, at the enormous progress made with the European Union and how different European cultures are coming together. So more similarities, more things in common are being experienced in that case, for example. Different story with cultures that base on different values, different cultural approach, different relationship with the state and public services, because basically there are many people that have suffered through their lives and through their journey to Sweden, and perhaps they never had the possibility to rely on trustworthy public services and states. On the contrary, so we cannot expect these cultures fully understanding immediately at once the importance of relying on public services and the concept of state. So I think that sometimes the risk is that for a very well organized and established society, such as the one in Sweden, what might happen is misunderstand this difficulty that some cultures might display, might have, and interpret it as resistance or even worse, sometimes lack of will to integrate.
Hur skulle Sverige kunna ta vara på alla som flyttar hit på bästa sätt?
Well, if I provide an answer now, then I become prime minister tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
That's a very difficult question, and I don't think there is only one way of doing it. What I feel, as worked in other contexts and might work also here in Sweden, is a systemic approach, which already Sweden is using, but perhaps reshaping it in light of the new challenges faced, recognizing new professional roles might be a way, with the understanding that this is teamwork. This is a process that needs to be managed. It starts somewhere. We say the school, absolutely important, but it cannot neglect, for example, the importance of including in the decision-making process also the representatives of these immigrant communities, for example. That is absolutely important. Shifting from a concept of working together, collaborating, to a concept of co-creating, giving inputs and receiving inputs to affect the decision process, the decision-making process, and basically develop solutions that are inclusive, participative. Yeah.
Vad skulle du mer vilja lyfta upp som en viktig fråga kopplat till migration eller integration?
It is important to communicate the right way. Communicate horizontally and vertically, understanding that not everybody understands even if, for example, I speak Swedish, or in this moment I'm speaking English. Yeah? I understand the question that you are asking in Swedish. I translate it into my understanding, basically in Italian, into my language. Then I formulate a thought that is expressed from Italian into my English that you receive through your field. Here there are 12 different languages that are interacting, and that is not always easy. So communication is super important. It is complex, and this complexity needs to be understood also at the institutional level. The way things are perceived are not necessarily the same way we want the people basically understanding the message that we are trying to convey. Yeah?
Har du något du vill lägga till eller fråga? Nej.
Jag tänker på vad deras profession är. Kommer det även in på det som vi har pratat om förut med kriminalitet och sånt? Kommer de ha kontakt med sånt och med det här med mammor och barn och att jobba med mammorna underifrån? Är det något som de kommer?
Det tror jag säkert.
Så det är också jätteintressant, tänker jag, med mammarollen. Tänker jag vore intressant att lyfta också.
What it is very important is that this ground for possible misunderstanding might create a sensitive space, with the risk that we often tend to overlap the concept of migration with the concept of crime. That is fundamentally wrong. Why? Migration does not equal crime. migration is a vulnerability position that, if framed into a criminogenic context, then might obviously increase chances for crime to be fed. Very often, the most vulnerable ones are the children. For a number of reasons: lack of access, again, cultural frameworks that might be segregated due to the poor understanding of the language and of the culture, bearing in mind that understanding the culture is something that the migrants need to improve, but also hosting communities need to understand. Hence, again, the importance of communication. In this context, children are at risk, are at great risk of being recruited by organized crime, for example. Organized crime that competes unfairly with a lot of money. So it is very difficult to convince children that whose perspective is either the 5,000, the 50,000 crowns per week, or basically nothing, that studying will give them more in the long term. Why? Because basically children can be more attracted by consumistic lifestyle, the watch, the car, but this leads them to a very dangerous path. One that the mothers fear, for example. So the importance of creating systems that can involve the mothers in that decision-making process that we referred to earlier is paramount. Mothers, sisters, wives, in certain cultures have certainly a say in the household, but also they know exactly what happens in their households. And their first concern is to prevent the possibility that their children might be killed, for example, because this is what might happen. We're seeing this every day, almost, in the media. Giving them a say, giving them an opportunity to be participating in a decision-making process that can tailor solutions, that can protect also their children, can be a big added value for the whole society in Sweden, I think. Yeah.
Mm.
Ja.
Stort tack.
Tack själv.